I had no input in any plans.
We're beyond that point. Okay, now we're just wondering about the why. And what we haven't figured out yet is that we've got a lying down a piece of paper, and we've got two theories. Miss Graber, and unfortunately she is deceased.
On a quiet street in Port Jervis, New York, a wedding dress became a crime scene. It was supposed to be the happiest night of Tina Antwistle's life. A woman who had survived abuse, heartbreak, and years of struggle had finally reached her fairy tale ending. Surrounded by family, friends, and the children she adored, Tina married the man she believed would protect her, love her, and give her peace. But less than 10 hours after saying "I do," Tina lay dying on her bedroom floor. Blood stained the walls, the staircase, the sidewalk outside, and just feet away, her newborn baby slept quietly in a crib, untouched, unaware that her mother's life was slipping away. The groom survived, the bride did not. What happened behind that locked bedroom door would shock an entire community. Was it a sudden explosion of jealousy, a hidden rage no one had seen coming, or a deadly truth concealed beneath the image of a perfect neighbor, a devoted partner, a family man? As investigators pieced together the final hours of Tina's life, one thing became clear. This was not a random act. It was personal, it was violent, and it happened on the very night that was meant to mark a new beginning. This is the story of a wedding that ended in blood, and a love story that became a murder scene. Before the blood, before the sirens, before the wedding dress became evidence, there was Tina Antwistle. She was not a woman who had lived an easy life. Tina grew up learning how to survive before she ever learned how to dream. Her childhood was shaped by fear, instability, and abuse. Home was not a place of comfort, it was something to endure. And like many children raised in chaos, Tina learned early how to protect others, even when no one was protecting her. Her siblings became her anchor. They grew up fast together, leaning on each other when adults failed them. Tina carried that instinct into adulthood, the need to hold things together, to keep moving forward no matter how heavy life became. By her late 20s, Tina was a single mother of 3. She worked hard, loved fiercely, and sacrificed constantly. Relationships came and went, often marked by disappointment or emotional damage. She had seen enough to know that love could hurt just as much as it could heal. Still, she never stopped hoping that someday, someone would choose her gently. That hope followed her when she moved to Port Jervis, New York. Port Jervis was quieter than the places she'd known before. Tree-lined streets, familiar faces, a small town where people waved, helped each other shovel snow, and noticed when something felt off. Tina believed this town could give her children something better: safety, peace, and normalcy. She found a modest home, a routine, a rhythm. She cooked for neighbors, hosted family gatherings, opened her door to anyone who needed warmth or food. Tina was the kind of woman who gave without keeping score, the kind who believed love multiplied when shared. Then Dele moved in next door. At first, he was simply the neighbor who offered help. He carried garbage cans, shoveled sidewalks, fixed small things without being asked. Tina wasn't looking for romance. Independence had become her armor. But Louis was patient, quiet, present. He was gentle with her children, and that mattered more to Tina than anything else. Louis had no children of his own. He treated Tina's kids like they were already family. Zoo trips, beach days, ball games, small moments that added up. The children adored him, and Tina trusted their instincts. In her mind, a man who was kind to her children couldn't be dangerous. Slowly, carefully, she let him closer. Friends noticed how affectionate they were, how comfortable. Tina laughed more, smiled easier. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine permanence. Marriage, stability, a partner instead of a burden. When Louis proposed, Tina said yes. It felt earned. It felt safe. Soon after, Tina discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with joy. This child, she believed, was born from love, not struggle, not fear, a fresh start, a symbol that her life had finally turned a corner. They planned a simple wedding, nothing extravagant. Tina didn't want white. She chose champagne pink, a color that felt honest, soft, and symbolic, a blend of who she had been and who she hoped to become. Her sisters helped her make decorations by hand. Wine bottles turned into centerpieces. Laughter filled the room as they worked late into the night. Tina was building more than a wedding. She was building a future, piece by piece, with her own hands. But not everyone was convinced. Some friends noticed Louis' jealousy, small comments, side glances, questions that lingered too long. Nothing explosive, nothing obvious. The kind of behavior people often excuse or laugh off. He just loves you. He's protective. He's afraid to lose you. Tina had survived worse. This didn't scare her. Yet one sister hesitated. She asked Tina if she was sure. told her it wasn't too late to walk away. Tina listened, but she didn't waver. She believed love meant choosing, even when fear whispered otherwise. March 28, 1998 arrived cold but clear. Inside the church, warmth replaced winter. Tina walked down the aisle smiling, tears streaming down her face. Family watched her glow. She looked happy, truly happy. For those who loved her, it felt like victory, like life had finally given her something back. They exchanged vows, promises of protection, of forever. At the reception, music filled the room. Laughter echoed. Tina danced with Louis, guided by his hands. Guests toasted to love, to family, to new beginnings. No one knew they were counting down the last peaceful hours of her life. Later that night, the party moved back to the house. The music continued, people drank, children ran through rooms. Tina, even on her wedding night, thought of others. She joked, played matchmaker, tried to keep the joy alive a little longer. But something shifted. Louis grew quiet. His jealousy surfaced again, sharper this time. Tina noticed she didn't want an argument in front of guests. She suggested they talk privately, upstairs, away from everyone. That was the last time most people would see her alive. What happened next would leave a town shaken, a family shattered, and a newborn child growing up without a mother. Because behind that bedroom door, the fairy tale was already dying, and in the next moments, love would turn into violence. Here is part 2 of 4, continuing in the same dark true crime narration style. Continuous flow, no headings, no softening. The music downstairs kept playing. Laughter drifted up the staircase. Glasses clinked. Children ran through hallways, unaware that something had gone terribly wrong just a few feet above them. Behind the closed bedroom door, the tone changed. What began as an argument didn't sound unusual at first. Newlyweds fight. Stress spills over. Emotions run hot on wedding nights. No one panicked when voices rose. No one rushed upstairs. But then came the thuds. Heavy, sharp sounds. Furniture shifting. Something hitting the wall with force. The kind of noise that doesn't belong to words anymore. Tina's sister felt it before she understood it. That deep, instinctive warning in the body. The moment when joy collapses into dread. She tried the bedroom door. It was locked. That alone was wrong. Tina never locked her bedroom door. Not with family in the house. Not with children nearby. The banging grew louder, more frantic. Her sister pounded on the door, calling Tina's name. No answer. Just movement inside. Struggling. Chaos. Then the door opened. What waited on the other side didn't make sense at first. It took a moment for reality to settle, for the brain to accept what the eyes were seeing. Louis stood near the bathroom doorway. His white shirt was soaked in blood. In his hand was a knife. The room was already stained red. Blood on the floor, on the walls, on the bed. Tina was on the ground, barely conscious, her body torn apart by multiple stab wounds. Defensive injuries covered her hands and arms. She had fought. Hard. Her sister screamed. Another sibling rushed in. Someone tried to stop the bleeding, but there were too many wounds. Too much blood. Tina gasped, confused, terrified, slipping in and out of awareness. Her newborn daughter slept peacefully in the crib just feet away. Tina tried to reach her. One leg pushed weakly toward the crib. Her eyes kept drifting back to her baby. Panic flickered through the pain. She didn't understand what was happening, only that her children were near and she couldn't protect them. Her sister grabbed her hand. She told Tina not to worry, that the kids would be taken care of, that she wasn't alone. That reassurance mattered. A single tear slipped from Tina's eye, and then she was gone. Her wedding dress, champagne pink only hours earlier, was now dark, heavy, soaked with blood. 10 hours after saying "I do," Tina Antwistle was dead. Outside, chaos exploded. Louis's brother Angel ran from the house. Tina's brother Frank chased him down the street, screaming, rage, confusion. No one knew who was responsible. No one understood what they had just witnessed. Then a body fell from the second-floor bathroom window. It was Louis. He landed hard, unconscious, broken, bleeding. The groom survived the fall. Sirens followed quickly. Police cars flooded the dead-end street. Blue and red lights washed over the house where a wedding had just taken place. Inside, responders moved carefully through the carnage. Blood trailed down the staircase. Shards of glass lay near the shower. The bedroom told the story clearly. This was not an accident. This was not a momentary loss of control. This was a sustained, violent attack. Tina had been stabbed again and again. Chest, abdomen, face, back. One wound pierced her eye. The pattern told investigators everything they needed to know. Whoever attacked her intended to kill her. Louis was taken to the hospital under guard. His injuries were serious but not life-threatening. When police told him his wife was dead, his response was flat. Oh. No sobbing, no disbelief, no shock, just quiet. Detectives noticed it immediately. They asked him what happened. Louis said they argued. He said Tina insulted him. He said she hurt his feelings. He claimed she pulled the knife first, that he only stabbed her twice while defending himself. The medical evidence destroyed that story. 2 stabs don't explain dozens of wounds. Defensive injuries don't come from an attacker holding a blade for the first time. This was rage. This was control snapping. This was jealousy turning lethal. Witnesses recalled Louis growing upset earlier that night, accusing Tina of flirting, of disrespect, of embarrassing him. At some point during the argument, Tina removed her wedding ring and threw it. She told him to leave, to get out of her house. That moment mattered. Tina was strong, independent, unafraid to stand her ground. And for a man driven by insecurity and jealousy, rejection was unbearable. Investigators believe that was when Louis lost control. He knew where Tina kept a knife. He opened it. He threatened her. And when she didn't submit, he attacked. Afterward, as family members struggled to save Tina, Louis fled, climbing through the bathroom window like a coward, leaving his wife bleeding to death beside their child. At the hospital, police placed him under arrest for second-degree murder. The town of Port Jervis fell silent. It was the first murder in years, and it happened in the most unthinkable place, a wedding night in front of family with children in the house. 4 days later, Tina was buried. The same pastor who married her delivered her eulogy. The same people who danced with her now stood crying beside her coffin. Her children would never hear her voice again. Louis later pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 20 years to life. He still claimed he never meant to hurt her. The family never believed him. And maybe the most haunting truth of all is this: Tina escaped violence her entire life, only to be killed by the man who promised to protect her. In the days after the murder, Port Jervis felt different. Windows stayed dark longer at night. Conversations dropped to whispers. A town that rarely locked its doors was suddenly afraid of what could happen behind them. Tina Antwistle's death shattered the illusion of safety. Friends recalled moments of jealousy that once seemed harmless, comments brushed off as insecurity, jokes that carried a sharp edge, accusations over nothing, possessiveness disguised as devotion. No one wanted to believe it meant something worse. But in hindsight, the warning signs were there. Experts explained how jealousy can become lethal when paired with entitlement, when a partner believes love equals ownership, when control feels necessary to maintain identity. Tina was not submissive. She had survived abuse before. She knew how to stand her ground, and that strength may have sealed her fate. When she threw the ring and told Louis to leave, it wasn't just rejection, it was defiance. It was her reclaiming control in a moment when he felt it slipping away. For someone driven by fear of abandonment, that moment can be catastrophic. The trial never came. Louis pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, avoiding the risk of a longer sentence. He was sentenced to 20 years to life. The courtroom stayed silent as the words were spoken. There was no sense of victory, only finality. Tina's family sat together, grieving not only the loss of a sister, a daughter, a friend, but the loss of who she was becoming. A woman who had finally believed she was safe. A mother who had built a future with hope instead of fear. Her children faced a life defined by absence. They would grow up knowing their mother through photographs, stories, and the memories of people who loved her. Her youngest would never know her at all. Psychologists call what the family experienced compound trauma. Grief layered with shock, betrayal, and unanswered questions. How could someone who seemed so gentle become so violent? How could love turn into murder in a single night? The truth is uncomfortable. Violence doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it stands at the altar and promises forever. Tina's story became a warning whispered from one woman to another, that jealousy is not proof of love, that control is not protection, and that danger can exist even in places that feel safest. Her death changed Port Jervis. It changed her family, and it changed the way people understood intimate violence, not as something distant or rare, but as something that can erupt suddenly, devastatingly, without warning. In the end, Louis would spend his life behind bars, but Tina paid the price first, and no sentence could ever equal what was taken from her. The prison walls closed in around Louis Dele, but for Tina Antwistle's family, there was no closure waiting on the other side. Years passed. Birthdays came and went. Holidays arrived with an empty chair that never stopped hurting. Tina's name was spoken carefully in her children's presence. They were raised on fragments, stories of her laugh, stories of how she loved fiercely, stories of how she always put others first, but no story could explain why she died. Psychologists say crimes like this don't begin with knives. They begin with entitlement, with the quiet belief that love gives ownership, that rejection is humiliation, that losing control is worse than losing everything. On that wedding night, Louis didn't just lose his temper, he lost his illusion of control. And when Tina refused to bend, refused to stay silent, refused to belong to him in the way he demanded, violence became his answer. Investigators would later say that the speed of the attack suggested rage, but the number of wounds proved intent. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't panic. This was domination carried out to its final consequence. Tina never stopped fighting, even as she bled, even as her strength failed, even as her child slept nearby, unaware that her mother was dying only feet away. That detail haunted everyone who worked the case. A newborn sleeping peacefully while a life was stolen beside her. It became the image no one could forget. Lewis continued to insist he never meant to kill Tina, that he lost control, that he was overwhelmed by emotion. But courts don't sentence feelings, they sentence actions, and his actions spoke clearly. He stabbed, he fled, he survived. Tina did not. At Sing Sing Correctional Facility, Lewis began his sentence among men who had also crossed lines they could never return from. Inside those walls, time moves differently. Days blur, years stack on top of each other. Regret, if it comes, arrives too late to matter. Outside, Tina's children grew. They learned to walk without her holding their hands, learned to speak without her voice guiding them, learned to live with a truth no child should carry. Her family became their shield. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, siblings, all stepping in where Tina no longer could. But even love can't replace a mother. Experts say intimate partner homicide often follows a predictable pattern: escalation, isolation, control, and finally violence. The warning signs are often dismissed because they don't look like danger at first. Jealousy mistaken for devotion, possessiveness confused with protection, anger excused as stress. Tina's story is not rare. It is repeated in different houses, different towns, different names, over and over again. And that's what makes it terrifying. This wasn't a stranger in the dark. This wasn't a masked intruder. This was a husband, a neighbor, a man trusted with her life, a man who promised forever. When the pastor delivered Tina's funeral service, he stood in the same place he had just days earlier, smiling as he pronounced her married. The contrast was unbearable. Love and death separated by 4 days. For those who loved Tina, time never truly healed the wound. It only taught them how to carry it. They remember her not as a victim, but as a fighter, a woman who survived hardship, raised her children, and believed she deserved happiness, even if it cost her everything. And maybe that's the hardest truth of all. Sometimes doing everything right still isn't enough. If this story left you unsettled, it should. Because cases like Tina Antwistle's don't belong to the past. They are happening now, quietly, behind closed doors, masked as love. If you see the signs, don't ignore them. If you feel unsafe, trust that instinct. If someone you love is trapped, speak up. And if you're drawn to stories like this, stories that expose the darkness people hide behind smiles and vows, stay with this channel. Because remembering victims like Tina is one way to make sure they are never erased. And sometimes telling the truth is the only justice left.